Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today at our ngrok Developer Roundtable. I'm Scott McAllister, developer advocate here at ngrok. I'm joined today by Justin Henning.
Hello, everyone.
And there we go. Justin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm the senior technical support engineer here at ngrok. First engineer, tech support engineer that joined. Handle anything around support here, from the smallest questions to getting deep as we can. Ngrok works everywhere, so can try to help you build anything and go anywhere you want with it. So here to support.
That's awesome. That's essentially why we have you here, Justin. And I didn't realize you're the OG support person. That's awesome. We have you here at ngrok, but also on the call. So the hope today, as I was explaining before, as folks were coming into the room, the hope today is that we are a community, that we join together, that we imagine us in a circle of chairs where we're in a room and we're chatting about all things ngrok, whether you have questions or comments, success stories, things you want to share with the group. Let us know. Let us know in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to actually open up the floor at some point later on to let you all chat with us and to ask us questions about all things ngrok or whatever else you feel like asking us about. So that'll be on a little later. And so to talk about the agenda a little bit, to give you a sense for how today is going to go, we're going to go over a few of the announcements that we have of things we've been working on here at ngrok in the last month or so. That's when we had our last roundtable. And then we're going to have a little bit of a demo where Justin and I are going to dive into a feature. Today, that's going to be the JavaScript SDK. And then finally, we're going to open it up to you. You can ask us questions about the JavaScript SDK or about ngrok in general, just whatever you feel like chatting with us about. And the hope is that you have an opportunity to ask whatever you want and for us to chat. So we'll dive right in. To level set with folks, you might be varying levels of understanding of what ngrok is. And so there's a good possibility that you were introduced to ngrok. I know this is how I was introduced to ngrok, as essentially a terminal or a CLI utility, a command line tool that allows you to get easy ingress into your development environment. And so if you have an app running on your machine and it's running on port 80, you could fire up ngrok and say, ngrok, give it the protocol of HTTP, specify port 80, and then maybe even give it a domain if you have a domain, or let ngrok assign a domain back to you. And then when you fire that up, you have a session where all the traffic routed to that domain will be tunneled back to your machine and tunneled back to your application running on that port. And you can provide that secure, easy access to that development environment on your machine. If that's all you know about ngrok, which again, that's me up until about a year ago, you're missing out on a lot. ngrok has now grown into a platform that essentially does that same type of easy ingress, but into a lot more situations, a lot more platforms. So we're what's called a unified ingress platform that allows you to provide that connectivity either to a local box or to your own data center, maybe to a cloud that you're running on, or devices that you have running in a different network. You could have ngrok be that intermediary that routes traffic to the right services, and also that connects you into different modules that we have. Things like authentication, things like load balancing, things like IP restrictions if you want to have specific IPs getting to your services. And we can even connect into things like observability. We have the ability to pipe events of that traffic passing through ngrok. You can pipe it over to things like Datadog, or whatever else you have as your observability tool. Some things are hard to say, even when you're talking to a small little camera. And so, but you can have that information, that data to act on, so that you can act on the traffic or act on the information that's passing through about your traffic. So that's a little bit about ngrok and where we are today. Some of the announcements, the cool things we've been working on in the last month or so is we have end-to-end HTTP2 support. This is something that is a long time coming, and you can now set a flag when you start your ngrok session. You can explicitly say to pass traffic over HTTP2, and that way ngrok could always receive HTTP2, but it can never know if the outgoing network could could handle it. So if you specify that it can, that you want HTTP2, you can do that on with that specified HTTP2 flag. There's more information on a blog post that we have at ngrok.com/blog. You can find there on the HTTP2 support we have there. And then also we have user agent filtering. We'll show a little bit of that today in our demonstration. But essentially what we can do with that is you can specify whether you can allow or deny different user agents, whether you want to not allow certain bots. Maybe you're not a big fan of like a Google spider coming through your application or your site. You could put that into the, say, user agent deny command or deny, what do you call it, setting. And you can say, let's not allow the Google bots to come through. So we wouldn't allow traffic or user agents coming from Google's bots. Those are set with a regular expression string. And yeah, we'll look at that a little bit more in depth later. And if you would rather not wait for the monthly roundtable to hear about these announcements, keep up with us on the ngrok.com/blog. Those are these announcements, and you can find out more details about these different announcements and other tutorials, other cool things that we're working on, cool stories that our engineers have over at our blog at ngrok.com/blog.
Yeah, we're
gonna. Then before we, go for it.
Just to say, we're gonna start adding some direct blog posts from support in there too, coming here soon to, try to get everyone involved and get more of that information, some of that maybe lower level stuff that everyone wants to ask that we can hopefully help there too. So it's a good place to go for sure.
Awesome. I'm excited to have contributions from support. That's I'm sure you talk to folks daily, right? That's your role is you're talking to people who are having issues. And so it'd be cool to hear the different stories that you have, the solutions that you've come up with. We'd love to have that on the blog, and I'm sure readers of the blog would benefit from it.
And we get to see some interesting ideas, general ideas, right? Of course, we won't share direct customer details, but it's definitely some of the cool stuff that we see getting built is definitely share worthy. So we'll have that coming soon.
Awesome. And I'm sure they appreciate that you're not going to share their personal information with the rest of the world. Folks in the chat, if you've had success stories with our support team, let us know. That'd be good. Can I join with my video and audio? Abdulaziz, no, we're not going to be opening it up to video and audio for everyone just yet today. Yeah. So, but as another piece of housekeeping news, I've been leaving this up on the screen so that you folks can, if you would like, to get ahead of the game. Get this on your calendars for next month. Next month's Developer Roundtable, and I'll put this up at the end as well, but you can register for next month's Roundtable. That'll be happening on February 27th. We got some exciting stuff. So exciting, I can't even share it with you yet. So sign up and register, and we'll see you again in a month. After our great conversation today. I'll put this slide back up at the end, but wanted to have it here to show you folks so that you can get excited for next month and have that on your calendars. All right. So as I mentioned, that was our demo, and those were our announcements. We are on to our demo part of our meeting here. And so what I want to do is I'm going to showcase a little bit of a Node.js application I've been working on and that I wrote. I'll give a link in the chat to the code so you can look at the code later. But here I have a CRUD application that's using Node. It's using the Express framework so that we can organize our Node.js code into something of a REST API. And we can have endpoints that allow us to perform some CRUD operations on some data. I decided that, I love music, right? If you can look real sharply behind me, I love my record player. I love my records. These are just some of my records. And so I wanted to build an application that kept track of my records and kept track of the different albums that I had, the conditions they were in, things like that. And so this application that I've built is an application that tracks those records. And so I have a MongoDB database that has a vinyl records schema. Let me know if the resolution needs to be bumped up a little bit. Justin, is it pretty good on your side?
It looks good for me anyway. I hope that's for everyone. Yeah, but
Yeah, folks in the chat, if you need this to be bumped up at all or the colors change, let me know. Keep me posted. That would be great. And fans of JavaScript, folks in the chat, who has used or is would be interested in like who has doing a lot of JavaScript today? Let us know in the chat. All right, I'll keep talking and then we'll talk a little bit. Awesome, Kofi, thanks. It's good. The resolution's good. Love JavaScript. Awesome. Okay. Vitor, you want to increase it a little bit? You misspoke TypeScript. Yeah. I haven't jumped on the TypeScript bandwagon just yet. I'm going to bump it up one more because I did get one request. There we go. I'll bump it up one more there and I will close that so we can see this a little bit. Okay. Readable. Okay. Vitor, yeah, a little bit better. I mean, right? I mean, it can't be any worse to be a little bit bigger. So, all right. So I have a schema here. Each record, I'm going to keep track of the title. I'm going to keep track of the artist, the year it came out, the genre, and the condition, because some of the records can get pretty dicey as they get older. And we're going to connect it into our Mongo database using the Mongoose library. I'm going to have an Express application. I'm going to initialize it here. And in our case, right now, we're going to run it on port 3500. And then we're going to have a React directory. I included the React directory inside my application so that I can embed it actually with the Node application. That way, both are running. When I run the server, it's also serving up the React code as well. That way, the front end is coupled in with the back end inside of our application. So we have it, we have it here with our vinyl record front end. We have our source and we have our forms and components and things that are helping us interact with our records here. Gonna close that here just for now. I have my endpoints here that are pretty standard for CRUD applications. I have my create. I have the get list all. I have a single vinyl record here. Again, performing simple functions on the vinyl record object and inside of that we have hooked into Mongoose right there, a Mongoose model. Or delete. And then here we have the way that we hook in our React application into our Node application with our Express app is that we have this catch-all. We basically say, all right, anything else, if it's not one of these endpoints, then you probably want to be talking to the front end. And so it's going to be referencing the React application that's sitting in the build directory there inside of the app there. And now we have our application running on the port that we specified, which is 3500. So I have my application here. I can take it. We're going to run it. I'll say node server running on port 3500. Look at took my browser off of the screen for a second because I was trying to troubleshoot something right as the meeting was starting. But I'll look here and I'll say localhost 3500. Ta-da! There's my records. There's my record app. I have my albums I've been putting in, and that works great for me. But Justin, can you get to it?
Nope, of course not.
Of course not, right? Yeah. So that's where ngrok comes into play. With ngrok, I could say ngrok HTTP 3500. There we go. And that sets up an ngrok session. That ngrok session gives me a domain. So now that all the requests coming through this domain are going to be piped back to 3500 on my machine. So I'm going to take that domain, pop it into here, and now my application is accessible on the internet. Any of you could use this URL and start adding records to my record collection if you'd like. If you want to add them to my record collection, if you could please also send me the record, that would be great. That way I could be accurate with what I have on my shelf as opposed to what's also in my URL. Do I need to open up ports and configure a routing rule? Justin?
Nope, you do not. That's the easy part of ngrok. That's what ngrok is for at its base level, right? It's doing the outbound the agents, creating that connection to our servers, and then creating that public endpoint. So when I say no, it assumes that you have 443 outbound open, just like most systems do that access the internet, right? So we're using that existing outbound that everyone uses to get out on the internet, using that same connection to create that connection and allow you to host whatever you'd like publicly without having to worry about configuring firewall rules or opening ports on your router, the fun things like that.
Right.
And at the base level, we're just giving that connection in. The HTTPS endpoint's encrypted. But there's a lot of other stuff that we can talk about later too that you can do to secure those endpoints. So
Yeah. So yeah, that was the follow-up question that Luis had, was how secure is it? And we'll talk about a few of the things you can do to secure your endpoint, right? Like right now, my barn doors are open to this particular port, right? On port 3500, all of you can get to this application. You can mess with my application. That's not great, right? In a CRUD application environment where I'm actually putting in data and I kind of want the data to be accurate right now. So like if this URL is available to everyone, right? I have someone already who's added Diabolic and Linkin Park, and those aren't on my shelf. And so we can do something else to start adding a little bit of security to our application. So actually, let's do that. Let's add some OAuth onto our application. So I'm going to take this. We're also going to take this idea where we have ngrok running as a separate process from our application. So right here, I have the node application running in its own process, running on port 3500. But then I have ngrok running and piping that traffic to port 3500. I'm going to actually kill the ngrok. So sorry for anybody who was in the middle of adding a new record. And we're going to keep our application. In fact, we're going to kill that one as well. And then let's come back to our code. And so down here, what I've done is I've already installed the npm package for ngrok. And that npm package is ngrok/ngrok. And you can take that into your code here. In fact, right here, the @ngrok/ngrok package. I installed that, and now I've included it or required it into my project. And then let's start implementing it into our project. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom of my code. And I'm going to take this right here because I've learned in the several times that I've done demonstrations, typing things in front of other people is hard. So we're going to actually take these commented code out here and uncomment it and talk about the different pieces that we have here. So when you want to set up an ngrok connection inside your application code, this connection is now coupled in with your application. So no matter where I'm running this, my ingress settings are still the same because I'm still pointing my ingress traffic or my traffic to ngrok. And ngrok is going to route that traffic to my application. So whether it's running on my box here, whether I move this code up onto a server somewhere else, all those settings still remain the same. And so in this case, to set it up with the JavaScript SDK, you have a couple of different objects that you need to build. First is you need, and I should preface this, this is for building a ngrok connection with an Express app. We need to be able to link ngrok with that Express app so that they're working together to provide the right kind of traffic to your application. And so first, we need to build a session. So we use the ngrok.session builder. And that session builder essentially is for things like grabbing your auth token. Your auth token you already set. When I was using the CLI over here, when I was using ngrok HTTP 3500, I had to already set in my environment variables my auth token that I received when I created my ngrok account. When I'm running the JavaScript SDK over here, it's pulling that same environment variable. I don't need to go get another token. It's running that same token. However, I'm not using the ngrok agent. So you don't necessarily have to have ngrok installed on your machine to use the ngrok SDK. You do need the ngrok npm package, but you don't necessarily need the ngrok agent. And so I grab that same auth token from my environment variables, and then I tell the session to connect. And so I build that session. And then when that session is built, I need to create a listener. And the listener is kind of the fun part. This is the part where you start adding different ngrok modules, and this is where the power of ngrok starts. You really start seeing it with your connections. And so in our case, remember how we set HTTP in the CLI? Well, here I'm going to say I'm going to have an HTTP endpoint, and then I'm going to set the domain. In this case, I chose spinvinyljs.ngrok.io. When your application, you can choose whichever domain you prefer. Every account, no matter free account or paid accounts inside of ngrok, gets at least one free ngrok domain. But you can also have your own custom domains. If I had a domain, I have a particular domain I like to use. It's called ngrokpaperscissors.com. If I put that in here, I could say, great, pipe traffic to ngrokpaperscissors.com. You would have to set the DNS records up with your registrar and in your ngrok dashboard, but you can do it, and it's absolutely super straightforward. But in our case, I'm going to have spinvinyljs.ngrok.io, and then I'm going to provide OAuth. In this case, I just want to provide Google OAuth, and actually, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to cut it off there. And if I just use the default settings, and then we're just going to use the default settings for now. I'm going to get over here so VS Code stops trying to help. So on here, then on line 152, we have the listen function. So with our session, we built our listener, we added our domain, we added our OAuth, and now we have our listen function. Our listener that we're taking, we're going to take that and link it to our Express application. So I took my listener object, I take my Express app object, and I send those into the ngrok.listen function. And that there is what creates our connection. It creates our socket that's actually going to be piping the traffic into our Express application. And then finally down here, this is a little more house cleaning type stuff, where anytime a SIG_int command or signal is sent when we do a Control-C, that way we want to make sure that we gracefully shut down ngrok, disconnect our session, and also shut down our application at the same time. So let's go now fire up this code so we can see a little bit about what's going on there. So I'll pop back over here. Not going to run the ngrok agent, but instead I'm just going to run our server again. But it's going to create a session, and then it's going to create ingress established on this domain. We have our socket running. And then now if I pop over here, I'm going to drop that into my URL. It's going to give me an OAuth window or a Google Auth window here. This here is the ngrok managed share application that that I chose to use, that all ngrok accounts can use in development. That way you can easily test out the OAuth feature. If you're going to take this into production, you would want to register an OAuth app with Google. But in our case, we're using the ngrok one. That's why it says ngrok.com. So in our case here, I'm going to log in here. I'm going to use my Gmail account. I'm going to say yes, and it's going to pop me in, and that's great. Now, this is fine. However, all of you could use spinvinyljs.ngrok.org and still get into my application. I could still get Jawbreaker. I actually do have the white album, so thanks for adding that. And we could still be adding more records into here. So I want to now take my OAuth and make it a little more OAuth-y, right? Make it do its job a little bit. And so I'm going to come here. Going to cut that off. I'll go into my code, and then we're going to say, all right, I trust my coworkers a little bit, that I just want to restrict or allow access to only ngrok.com. And so anyone who logs in with ngrok.com can actually get to my application here. And so that's the second argument in our OAuth function here. If you wanted to specify it just by email addresses alone, you could say, hey, I just want to make this available only to me and a handful of folks that are testing this out using my application, or maybe you're just sharing it with your family or something like that, a really small team. You could allow emails right here. That's the second argument there. And so if I say ngrok.com, I'll pop back out to my application. And now I've spin vinyl.js, and I'm going to come over here. This is my Gmail user. So I'm going to come over to my work one, drop my spin vinyl, and see, now I have my ngrok.com. That'll let me in to my application. However, if I tried, and actually my session still works. If anyone else tries, Justin, if you tried, actually try with a Gmail account.
Yep, I will.
Let's see. If I pop over here, right? And I come to my Gmail, spin vinyl JS, and I hit with my Gmail, I want to show folks what they see. And right there, I hit continue. You would hit this ngrok 5511. And it's like, you are not authorized to get here. And this is what a user would see if they're trying to get to your application and they don't meet that allow access, that criteria.
Yep, and they're getting stopped at ngrok before it ever even gets down to your system. So this is happening before any routed traffic ever heads down. We stop them at the top level. So.
Yeah. Yeah, they never even remotely get close to your application code. Yeah. I'm noticing there's a couple of questions. So John was asking, is argument 2 and 3 usable together? Can we set emails for Gmail and still have ngrok.com, or will that conflict? That's a great
Yes, you can. You can set both.
Okay. So, but they will conflict though, right? Like if I just say ngrok.com, but I say still let Scott McAllister in.
Yep. If it's a specific email, it will still let you in there.
Oh,
give that a shot. So you can set a domain, and then if there's someone not in your domain that you still want to let in that has a specific Gmail, you can, right?
I'm gonna see this. All right, so we did that. We came back over here. Now I'm gonna go back to this. Boom. That's awesome. Okay. So you can specify here. I could say, let everyone on the ngrok domain and let me. So maybe if you're like a contractor and I'm doing something for ngrok, maybe, right? And then I still want to be able to allow myself to get in, you could do it this way, right? That's a scenario that I could see that's fairly plausible. So that's OAuth. Super rad, right? Like when someone first showed me the OAuth functionality with ngrok, my mind was blown. As someone said in the chat here, is the fact that you could easily put OAuth on the front of your application nicely and quickly. That was game changing for me. So with OAuth, we have that. We also have user agent filtering. As we mentioned before, this is a new feature that just came out. And with user agent filtering, I could do a couple of things here. I want to show off two different, I want to show the allow and I show the deny. And so the allow here, I could say, I would like to have traffic from Google Images to still be able to get here, or anything with the Google Images user agent header. And so it's checking the user agent header to say, okay, if it has Google Images in it, we'll let it in. But for some reason, I don't want traffic from Bing. Nothing against Microsoft. I live in Microsoft country, never worked there, but love them. They're great. But for our particular application, we don't want that traffic. And so we can say that here, and I can say deny any user agent with this with this regular expression pattern. Same type of stuff. I fire that up, and then all that traffic will be filtered out through our application. So we can add all those different modules, all those different features inside of our session. So the listener. So the listener object is like I said, it's the fun one. It's the one where you can say, oh, wait, I can add this. Oh, I can add that. I could do IP filtering if I wanted to. We could put a CIDR block in there and say, only restrict traffic from this particular IP address range. Yeah. Any other cool modules you can think of? I can't think of any other ones at the moment, Justin. OAuth for me is like the big one. Yeah. All right. Let's see. So
I was muted. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
Right.
I figured you were pondering the question and coming up with a great answer.
Right. Um, I don't know off the top of my head if all of these are in the SDK yet. But we do have the Edge feature, right? And we've got some modules there that include things like circuit breaker compression, restrictions, OAuth, bring your own OIDC, request headers, modify request and response headers going through us. We can do SAML integration, and we also do webhook verification.
Awesome. And so Justin, someone was asking, Brandon was asking in the chat, in the Q&A, does the auth work with Okta? I do believe it does.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we have documentation actually in our docs on that. I can pull that up and share it
We can
here.
pull that up. While
Yep.
you're pulling that up, if folks want to play with this code, if you want to see this code or a blog on the demonstration I just did, you can find it here. Here's the code here. It's all the code I was talking about today. I'll drop that in the chat. And then also, if you want to share this, this is essentially a blog post taking you through the same story of adding OAuth to your application here. That is available here. It's a blog post I wrote that actually came out a couple days ago. You can add that and share it with your friends and coworkers that way. Someone asked in the chat if the recording will be available afterwards. Yes, we do plan on having this available. I believe we're going to post it to YouTube at some point. So let's see. Awesome. So can you share some common use cases where the ngrok JavaScript SDK can be beneficial? Yeah, so the JavaScript SDK is essentially a way for you to take your application and run it anywhere, if that makes sense. So you have that application, you have the code that runs it, but to have it accessible, it's not tied down to whatever whatever platform it's on. So I set up these settings here in my application. I set it up with this domain. I set it up with this OAuth. I set it up with these user agent filters, and it's running on my box. And now I'm going to take my code and push it up to Heroku or DigitalOcean or AWS. And all those settings are still the same. And so it's still, you don't have to think about it anymore. That's the kind of plumbing that we are going to take care of for you, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's with programming, with technology, that's how advancements happen, right? We have further advancements that further abstract out mundane tasks or tasks we don't want to focus on or don't want to have expertise in. Let the experts take care of that. So ngrok are the experts on ingress. And then you take care of your application and what makes your application unique and awesome.
Right. Lightly tied to infrastructure as code. And just to clarify some of that, people that are used to ngrok and running that ngrok agent, you have to go download the ngrok agent, or you have to package that ngrok agent. With these SDKs, you're not having to get that agent. So if you do have, or you create an app that you need to send out to a bunch of your own clients, people you work with in different parts, but don't know how to get through that networking, that stuff that can take weeks. This allows you to, share that code, push it out, get it out, and it's the connection, everything's written into the code itself, right? That connection to us, built off the standard HTTP, but built with ngrok in mind. So it's actually very cool. You don't need to worry about getting an agent every time, or for any new device or computer you spin it up on. We have people that send out stuff with cameras, right? They want to be able to get these cameras, and they're sending out, and they don't want to have to work with someone at their home network trying to get that camera back out to the public, right? Open those ports. This way, it's built right into their app itself.
Yeah. Arif, you were asking about the NPM package. This is the NPM package that we have been talking about. Yet last published about 2 months ago. So it did come out about, it's gonna say 6 weeks ago. It was right before the holidays, and maybe that's how time flies a little bit. So, but yeah, this is the package, the @ngrok/ngrok NPM package. Here we go. That was you. Are you all planning to release types for this? You know, for us, Dino, TypeScript users. That's a great question. I know it's, if you look at the package here, it's definitely written with TypeScript. So I don't know. That is a great question that I can find out. If we keep chatting, I will find out. Any other questions from folks? These have been great. Thanks all for engaging. I thought I saw somebody in this. I use this for the first time. Yeah, Kareem. So you used this for the first time last week. Seriously impressed. Love the product a lot. Kareem, what were you using it for? Would love to hear what you were using the SDK for. And then also, folks who are on the call and thinking about questions that you might have, what are other SDKs or other products you would like to see it and an ngrok functionality embedded inside? So we have several SDKs, JavaScript, we have Python, we have Go, we have Rust, we have a Kubernetes ingress controller that's pretty rad. And I believe Java is coming down at some point.
Yep, Java's alpha at the moment, but
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, David. You dropped a question in there. So being head of, let's see as well, bootstrapping is Windows 7 and Ubuntu, but for how long do you plan to support 7? Windows 7? Justin, do you have an idea how long we're going to be supporting Windows 7?
So we're 64-bit. I don't think we're testing on Windows 7 directly anymore, but we are 64-bit. So I can't say that we're not going to stop putting out the 64-bit or the 7. I can find out what our plan is there, but I don't know that off the top of my head. Being is Windows 7 end of life, I don't know when it actually end of life anymore. So itself, right? We want
Right,
to,
right.
we'd love to be able to run it everywhere and all things at the time, and we try really hard to do that, but right, Windows 7 being EOL in 2020, what I can say is we'll do our best.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
And if you ever run into issues with agents, definitely reach out to support and we'll do our own testing and see what's happening. So
How do they reach out to support, Justin?
the easiest way is actually to email us at support@ngrok.com. Or if you can't remember the email address, if you go to the ngrok website, there's the little blue help question mark down in the right-hand corner on any page. Click on that, and that'll send it directly to our support. Me and my team will help you out as fast as possible.
So you can either reach out to support@ngrok.com or hit that here, and this gets to our support team as well. It goes directly to them. So there you go, David. Hope that answers your question. John, is Dart being considered for SDKs? Backend Dart is coming along. Also, Flutter Web is a thing. Flutter Web is a thing. I have some friends working on some projects with Flutter, and it looks pretty rad as far as a development environment. I haven't heard about Dart. I can definitely will add that to our list of things to find out. Yeah, I haven't heard of folks asking about Dart. And so it's great to hear now that someone's interested in Dart as well. Let's see. Justin, you want to take Kareem's question about replay and inspect?
So that currently isn't available in the SDK. If you're talking about on the agent, that, right, I don't know if we can show that, Scott, if you can show just what the inspect interface looks like on the agent, just to get an idea. Not sure we're set up to do replay traffic, but you can definitely see that feature.
Sure.
And then what we are working on is a feature, it's alpha right now. Can't say too much more until we're ready to go, but being able to see that same traffic in the dashboard. So to have the option to not have to be on the device, you can see the traffic going down to any of your agents. And see
I know, I don't believe the replay and inspect works on the SDKs, right?
But correct.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. But you can see it on the agent, but not the SDK.
Right. So if we want to look at looking at your traffic within the dashboard.ngrok, actually that would,
Well, you'd want to do that the localhost 4040, Scott, on with a running agent, right? That's what we would have
right. Okay.
now.
So we can do that here. So if we wanted to say, let's go back here, let's do our application. And then I'm going to pop over here. We'll stop using the SDK for a second. And then I say node server. It's going to fire us up on port 3500. So now we're going to use the ngrok agent to use 3500 again. And then I'll take that, right? That's our traffic that's coming here. So if folks could go there and do stuff. There we go. We got some folks coming in. Thank you. I'm now going to go over to localhost 4040. Localhost 4040. And we can inspect the traffic that's coming in. If you look at that now, you can look at your requests. You can see the different bodies here. I can look at the headers. Let's see. Different, and all our different API calls that we have going on there. Yep. And then the replay button right here. If I wanted to say, if I was having an issue with, say, this call here, and it's like, okay, that's interesting. Well, I'm going to change some stuff, and then I'm going to replay how that works. And so I can say, I could replay with modifications. I could take my request in here and say, all right, what if I change this? What's a good one to change, Justin? I figured, what if I changed like I don't know, this to iPhone or iOS?
So sometimes, well, one thing, yeah, that's a good one. One of the things that we see, right? People want to maybe change the host, send what host they're actually connecting to. So
Okay.
you have multiple, say, things like WordPress or whatever that anything that relies on virtual host names, you can actually modify it to go to an actual virtual host on that same system. That's something common. So you can, in that case, you could do something like just like localhost. Or you can add to the body to your request. Interesting.
Yeah. That's definitely something that I've done as far as testing things out. And so, yeah, you could come here and start adding things to your body there. And so you can mess with that and replay it with your application. Yeah.
Yep. And that way you don't have to actually send that stuff, right? You don't have to.
Yeah.
Working
You don't
with
have to
some
keep going back to your application and reloading or hitting a thing or hitting a button. You can just come in here and start messing with how it's working with your application. So. All right. So can you explain multiple nats? Wait, that's you?
Me answering a question I was asking to clarify. So,
oh, and you sent it to just us.
Oh,
yeah.
I was set to host and panelists. Oh,
yeah.
That would. Thank you for pointing that out. I thought I had already made these changes, Kareem.
No worries. You look at that one, and I'm gonna say thank you to Howard Hill. He says, can I just say a non-JavaScript ngrok question with the ingress in the cloud? I use the Kubernetes ingress controller. Awesome. And it's great looking for me features with it. That's awesome, Howard. I've also been playing with the ingress controller. I'm running some applications out of my house, actually. My son is building an application that tracks his, he plays saxophone, and he's building an app to track the time that he practices. And so he runs it out of our house, and we use the Kubernetes ingress controller to get the traffic out there. So that's pretty rad. Thank you, David. That replay is excellent. And Justin was asking about multiple NATs. Someone asked about a multiple NAT scenario. So Luis, you said, does ngrok support multiple NAT scenarios? And Justin was asking a follow-up question. Can you explain by multiple NATs? ngrok, either the agent or SDK, initiates the outbound connection from the device. Generally, if you have access to the internet from the device, ngrok will connect to the cloud platform to create the connection.
Right. So not usually multiple NATs isn't an issue here, right? Because that outbound connection is actually being created from the device itself. So we're creating a session, and within that same connection, sending the data encrypted. So NATs, usually we see this, people use us to get around things like double NATs and when IPs, what's the internet that everyone's the sky internet.
Right. Oh, yeah, Elon Musk's.
Right.
That one.
By the name, just
yeah.
my head is I wanted to
Of
talk
course,
about.
now that I'm on camera in front of a bunch of people, I couldn't tell you.
Starlink,
Starlink,
right.
thank you, Nicole. Yeah. I was literally talking about Starlink yesterday with somebody.
Right.
Total side note, power went out in my city for 24 hours, and the guy who had Starlink was like, well, I have internet. So I'm like, maybe I'll look at that. So,
Right. Yeah, and with Starlink, right, they can't actually open ports, right? So they'll look to us because we can create that sort of same feature on those natted public IPs, right? It's a very common use for us.
yeah. Emo asked in the Q&A, if you don't have the agent installed, how do I set the auth token using the package only? So to set the auth token, what you would do is you would set the environment variable. I am trying to get.
You can also set it by code, just to throw that out there. If
Oh,
you
you
want
can.
hard code it, you can hard code it if you want to. Yes.
But we all know about hard coding auth
Hard coding
tokens
auth
into your
tokens into
code is not the best idea. I know
no,
from experience, dude.
right.
So,
But for development, it can be,
yes.
right? Maybe not for production, but to make your development easier, you can definitely, instead of using the set auth token from ENV, we can.
I was trying to get the
Using,
particular auth token or the particular environment variable that we set it to. I forgot, and I don't want to show mine.
it is.
Do you know the name of the environment variable off the top of your head?
ngrok _ auth token, I believe. Let me just double check.
There we go. There it is. There it is. Okay. You want to set your ngrok auth token environment variable there. And where you get that environment variable, Emo, is when you come into your ngrok account. So when you set up your ngrok account, you'll have a dashboard. And inside that dashboard, it'll tell you your auth token. I'd show you mine, but then you'd all have my auth token. So, but yeah, go to dashboard.ngrok.com, sign in there, and your auth token will be real big across the top. All right. This has been fun. Any other questions or stories that folks want to share? Thank you all for adding to my record collection. I'm expecting to receive those albums in the mail. That way, the list that you have there, especially that Jawbreaker one, I'll take that Jawbreaker record. Thank you very much. And let's go back to here real quick. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this lovely time we had together, please come back next month. I promise you will not be disappointed. It's going to be some pretty rad stuff. We have some pretty cool announcements. Here we go. Sorry, invariably, right? When someone starts to wrap up a meeting, it's like, wait, one more question. Happy to answer some more. We have a few more minutes. So is there a mobile app support, or am I barking up the wrong tree? Mobile app support. So you're thinking about trying to get Ingress onto your mobile device? Is that what we're thinking? Perhaps. I
So,
would love to hear that scenario.
so we do see,
Yeah.
we, so this is a kind of a touchy subject, but, so we do, like in Termux, right? Used on phones. So we have we have multiple Linux agents, right? So you can use a Linux agent on those types of devices. Um, we get a lot of abuse. You can, with a tool as popular and making things easy, people find ways to use you in ways you probably don't want. So we see a lot of that. So support for that has kind of been discontinued, but I can tell you it will work. Um, we just may not help, just because we need to help protect our customers and protect
Fair.
ngrok, right? So,
Fair, fair.
but throwing it out there, it will work, right? So
All right. All right. Good to know. Doesn't have yeah, I just thought you'd ask. Yeah, no problem, John. You never know answers unless you ask questions. So that's how we learn. It's why
very
we're
much.
here. It's why we have the roundtable. I love doing these. I've done these at previous gigs, and I really enjoy the conversations that people have, because a lot of times when people ask questions, it's like, wait, we never thought of something that way before. I loved that someone asked about the Dart, about Dart and Dart support. I think that's definitely an area we should be looking at.
Yeah, we're always looking for inspiration and things that people want, right?
Yeah,
We'll continue to build.
for sure. Cool. Justin dropped some stuff about the auth token there. First, if you want to set your auth token in your code, so emo, that if you want to set your auth token inside your JavaScript code there, you can set it there, but you want to set the ngrok _ auth token variable there. But yeah, grab the value of that from your dashboard, and that you should be good to go. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for interacting with us, for chiming in from all over the world. We really appreciate it. Thank you for using ngrok. Please feel free to reach out. You can find me on Twitter at ST McAllister. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me there as well. And you can get a hold of Justin at support@ngrok.com, or if you hit that little blue button down there at the bottom, so of the ngrok.com pages. Until next month, Justin, thank you for coming. Did you have one more thing to say?
I just want to say, I will always accept direct requests too, but we prefer that support just so we make sure your problem doesn't get lost, right? So you'll get a better response. So definitely been
Awesome.
great. Thanks, Scott.
I mean, Justin does want to go on vacation sometimes, right?
I do, but
Right. So
I love what I do also, so that's I'm always here.
Nice. Well, thank you all for coming. Thanks for being here. Look forward to seeing you all next month. Please be sure to register at the QR code there. And until then, have a great rest of your day.